Hey guys, welcome back to Haven, episode 8, epi- chapter 14. This should get interesting. John stirred. He blinked, his eyes barely open, to find that his face was still firmly planted in the corner of the couch cushions. He slowly sat up, his face sticky with the dried tears. John quickly tried to rub them off before anyone noticed, but the room was silent, aside from quiet breathing. He turned to his left and saw the fuzzy image of Karkat slumped over the table, asleep. After a moment of scrambling to find his glasses, which had drifted between the couch cushions, his vision sharpened and he saw that Solix remained motionless, in the same position that they had left him in. He heard soft footsteps from behind him. He turned around and saw Kanaya tiptoeing out of her room, buttoning a long black coat. When she saw him staring, she froze, her eyes wide. John blinked, but didn't say anything, confused as to why Kanaya looked so startled. She carefully lifted a finger to her lips, then indicated Karkat's sleeping form with a jerk of her head. John nodded and sank back down to lay against the various throw pillows scattered around the couch. Kanaya crossed the room, grabbing something that was standing by the door, quickly concealing it in her jacket, and left. Karkat woke less than a minute later, shaking his head groggily. "You up?" he croaked at John. "Yeah. How is he?" "I don't know. Are you hungry or anything?" "No." "Yeah, me neither." John slid off the couch and slumped on the floor, his head hanging down. His arms were crossed in front of him, and he did what he had been trying to avoid and studied them closely. There were two spots that his originally pigmented skin remained, but even those patches had seemingly to grow smaller overnight. His fingernails were slightly thicker, and as far as he could tell, had darkened. "You okay?" a voice asked from John's left. He looked up to see Karkat standing over him. The troll then sat down next to John, crawling his knees up in his chest. John shrugged. "Yeah, me neither." "Is he gonna be okay?" "I think so. He's gonna be pissed for sure, but I think we can handle it." "I'm sorry." "For what?" "I was right there. I couldn't. I should've." "No, don't beat yourself up about it. It already happened. Besides, you probably would have gotten killed if you had gone down there earlier. No one blames you, okay? It's just another crazy shit thing that happened in our crazy little world. They keep happening." "Yeah, I know. You can never catch a fucking break without someone being stabbed in a cliche dark back alley. It's stupid." "Yeah." John groaned and stood up, his clothes wrinkled and smeared with dirt, then walked into the bathroom, leaving Karkat sitting against the couch. He didn't mean to be rude, but John was feeling overwhelmed and guilty, and didn't want to talk. Kanaya's bathroom was a tiny room blocked off by an old mildew-covered shower curtain. The shower itself was nothing more than a large metal basin and a shower head strung up on the ceiling. In the middle of the basin was a drain that was there when Kanaya had arrived, and no one knew exactly where it went. Solix had single-handedly gotten the running water working again for a small part of the city. It wasn't extremely clean, but it was good enough. He turned the lever and water began spurting out, banging against the tin of the basin. He peeled off the shirt he was wearing. It was black, with a yellow symbol of a Roman numeral 2. It wasn't his, but he no longer cared. Him, Solix, and Karkat kind of shared clothes, interchangeably now. John looked up, then almost jumped, as it seemed someone else had entered the bathroom. He inhaled shakingly, and again met his own eyes in the mirror that hung on the wall. His face was entirely gray. He barely recognized himself. He felt like a stranger in his own body. His eyes were still blue behind the clear lenses of his glasses, but he knew they wouldn't be for long. His lips were darker than his face, but only slightly. He had been expecting it to happen, but he couldn't help but feel a certain sense of finality. There was no going back now. Even by a strange, miraculous change that he somehow escaped this place. He could never go back to his old life. His breathing started to quicken, and he closed his eyes. Inhale, count to 3. Exhale, count to 3. Inhale, it's fine. After 17 carefully regulated breaths, John turned away from the mirror and back to the shower. He pulled the rest of his clothes off and stepped in, cringing at the temperature. He'd gotten used to cold showers, but it didn't mean he enjoyed them. When he had endured as much as he could, he stepped out, shutting the water off and grabbing one of the fraying towels, determinedly staring at the ground. He exited to Kanaya's room, shuffling through the large pile of clothes by the side of her bed until he found a few things that looked like they would fit him. He walked back into the living room, towels slung around his shoulders. Karkat? Yeah? Karkat was back by the table, sitting in the stool again. How long have I been like this? John gestured to his face. Oh, a few days. You didn't seem like you wanted to think about it, so I didn't say anything. John nodded. Just then, Solix shifted and groaned. Both Karkat and John jumped. Solix blinked a few times, his eyelids collapsing slightly inwards when they closed, then bit his lip. John and Karkat exchanged a panicked gaze. Did he realize? Could he remember what happened? John jerked his head to show that Karkat should speak first, who narrowed his eyes as if to say, what in the ever-loving fuck am I supposed to say in this situation? John indicated that he should just suck it up and get on with it, and Karkat cleared his throat. He started, I know, Solix answered. John and Karkat exchanged another look. This is kind of a stupid question, but how are you feeling? How you would expect. Can I get off this goddamn table now? I want to sleep on something that isn't a shit piece of wood. Yeah, of course. Solix sat up and slid off the table, stumbling to the side. Karkat jumped forward and caught him, hoisting him back up by his arms. He guided Solix to the couch, keeping a tight grip on his arm the whole time. Solix flopped on the couch, turning over, and was asleep in a few seconds later. Karkat stayed staring down at him for a few more seconds before moving to the camp stove in the corner of the room. He put up a pot of boiling water and ripped open a few packets of instant oatmeal. Where's Kanaya? He asked. I don't know. I saw her leave early this morning. Karkat stiffened. He got up, abandoning the steaming pot, and ran towards the door, looking to one side of it. Why can't anything ever go smoothly? He snarled, stomping back. What is it? Her chainsaw's gone. I think I know where she went. What do we do? I don't know. Go after her, I guess. I don't think much of Aridin before, but he gestured to Solix's sleeping form. I'll go find her. You need to stay and watch him, John said. What? You'll get lost 20 feet out the door. You've barely been here a month, remember? The door banged open, interrupting the brief argument. John and Karkat both turned. John's mouth fell open. Kanaya was framed in the doorway, a chainsaw in her left hand. Her coat was ripped and hanging in shreds, and purple blood was splattered violently across her entire body, staining her clothes and streaking her hair. She smiled, blood dripping off her elegant fangs, and eyes gleaming. Good news, she smirked. Bastard's dead. You cut him in half. That's what I said. In half. Half? Kanai sighed, throwing down the chainsaw and extracting herself from the shredded jacket. Yes. Well, at least he didn't have any friends, Karkat said, half to himself. No one knows I did it, Kanai retorted. Thanks, by the way, mumbled Solix from the sofa. Kanai paused, eyebrows raised, clearly not expecting him to be conscious. It needed to be done. She dumped her coat on the now vacated table and disappeared into the bathroom. So, Karkat said, turning to John, we might as well go out. We're almost out of food. Okay, John replied, scanning the room for his hoodie. You okay staying here? Kanai's in the other room, Karkat said, leaning down. Yeah, whatever. Okay, cool. Let's go. John had found his hoodie and wrapped it around himself, even though he didn't really need it anymore, no longer having to keep his skin hidden. The two exited quickly into the street above. Karkat's backpack slung over his shoulder. They turned left, heading towards the more populous part of the city. They walked past the apartment building. There were still bloodstains on the pavement. I guess Kanaya took care of her, Karkat commented, noticing that Feferi's body was gone. John said, not wanting to linger more than he had to. They took up a light jog into one of the side alleyways, and this time John didn't feel so lost. He'd been exploring around the city little by little, first with Karkat or Solix, then on his own for a little bit. After a while, they passed by one of the gates into the city, the one that John had come through. He paused in his step, barely illuminated in the slim alleyway, and stared. Through the gate, he could see the dark purples of the desert splayed beyond, and the outline of an armed guard. It was such a short time that he had been pushed through the gate himself, yet so much had happened. For a moment, he briefly considered running to the gate, scaling it, and sprinting into the desert, just to see the wide open space, to feel the wind whipping through his hair. However, he knew all too well that if he managed to escape the desert, he would be burned by the sun long before he reached any sort of shelter. Would it be better to go that way, he wondered? To at least be free? He was startled out of his thoughts by a hand on his shoulder. Karkat looked at him in a sad, sympathetic look, then pushed him out of view. They continued on, John shaking his head until they reached what Karkat commonly referred to as the crossroads. It was a courtyard of sorts, which had once been a parking lot. Faint smears of paint were visible under years of accumulated grime and graffiti. Flashes of yellow eyes were all that were to be seen, indicating groups of people milling about. Everyone spoke in whispers. There were at least 10 adjoining alleyways and streets to the parking lot, so it was a common meet-up and trade place. Karkat stepped up to the newest group, John trailing behind like a reluctant shadow. Most of the inhabitants of Haven still terrified him, to be honest. What you got? One of them asked, a female troll with long, skinny braided hair. Karkat slid the backpack off his shoulders and opened it in one fluid motion. Noodles mostly, a few crackers, water. The girl took off her own backpack and showed Karkat the contents. No way, is that candy? He asked, sounding a bit like a kid. The troll grinned, showing shark-like teeth. Hell yeah. 2 waters? 4 noodles? 3 noodles. They're not that old. Come on, kid, you're killing me. This is probably the last candy you're ever gonna taste. Fine, I'll throw in a pack of crackers. One? One. It's like 10 pieces. Not even that much. Fine, kiddo. You got yourself a deal. Karkat reached eagerly towards her pack. The troll hand shot out and grabbed his wrist. He sighed and forked over the food. Then she proceeded to dump several brightly wrapped pieces of candy into his bag. Karkat bade farewell with a nod, then turned back towards John, a huge grin on his face. Man, you have no idea how cool this is. I haven't had candy in years. Holy shit. John chuckled at Karkat's enthusiasm. Then they both moved on to the next group. Karkat managed to barter several packets of instant oatmeal for one ramen. The troll they were dealing with was tall, heavily tattooed troll, that with matted hair and permanently surprised expression. He never spoke a word, just gestured to various food items and indicated lower or higher values with his thumb. As part of his training regime, as Karkat liked to call it, John had to barter with the next person. They moved around the group until they found a guy leaning against a brick wall of a nearby building, a cigarette burning in his lips. He was pleasant enough, but spoke in a weird accent that John couldn't quite place. He ended up trading 2 more ramen for several Twinkies and some more crackers. When he joined Karkat, who had been standing off to the side and looked fairly annoyed, Karkat reminded him to actually barter because it's your life on the line. You can't just hit the fucking supermarket around here. Get as much as you can. John sighed and agreed, but was still getting used to the whole system, not entirely expecting people to always be exploiting him. Karkat assured him that yes, they were. However, by the end of the excursion, the backpack was well stocked with food other than chicken-flavored ramen, and they decided to head home. Karkat was silent. He jogged a few steps ahead of John. They reached the gate fairly quickly, and out of the corner of his eye, John saw movement. He reached forward and grabbed Karkat's shoulder, pulling him to a stop. Karkat spun around, confused, and John raised a finger to his lips and crouched. A truck could be seen in the distance, bumping along the otherwise empty road, and then, after about 30 seconds, skidded to a stop. The back door was opened and 2 white-suited guards stepped out. John's stomach flipped as he experienced a terrible feeling of déjà vu. However, the person in the back of the truck was putting up far more of a fight than John did. "Let go of me! Get the fuck off me!" the girl shrieked from inside the truck. The guards had each lifted her up by one shoulder, and she was flailing and kicking. Her hand was cupped around her back. John's ears perked up. He knew that voice. The black-suited guard was opening the gate, and Karkat made a noise of longing in his throat as it slid open, but made no motion. The 2 guards were shoving the girl forward, one of them removing her handcuffs. She twisted and turned, her hair flailing this way and that, screaming and digging her feet into the gravel. Just before they shoved her inside, she made one last desperate move, attempting to wrestle the gun from the guard standing at the gate. He rebuffed by striking her on the head with the butt of the rifle. John winced, hearing the dull thud. She staggered, and the guard shoved her inside, closing the gate, then pointed the gun at her face. She proceeded to spit in his face and start to run, still clearly addled, towards where John knew was Main Street. "We have to get her," he whispered to Karkat, who was looking at him like he was crazy, gesturing to the guards still milling around the gate. "She's my friend," John said, then leapt up. "No, wait," Karkat hissed, but John was sprinting, staying low to the ground and feverishly hoping that no one was looking this way. He caught up to the girl, who had slowed down to a limp, then grabbed her by the shoulder and spun her around. She caught him with a right hook, punching the side of his face so hard he staggered backwards. She was breathing heavily, clearly terrified, then turned and started running away from him. "No, come back, Jade!" She stopped, 10 feet away, then swiveled around. She had a bruise across her left cheek. Her eyes were wide behind her glasses. "John?" she half-whispered. "Is that you?" And I think that's where we're going to leave it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed, and poor Jade getting trapped in Haven. But at least John was there. I'll see you next time, guys. Bye!
With the shotgun, fire till the wood.